Okay, so last time I took you through inset mosaic crochet as it following the little chart from part 3 of the Snuggle Up Advent Cal. And what I've just done, I've just added a few rows of just plain double crochet here. In the actual Snuggle Up Cal there's different textured stitch patterns in each section, but I just wanted to show you how you can make a really beautiful blanket with really basic stitches. So all we've used here is chains, double crochets and trebles, and again that's still all we're going to be using. So what I've done, I'd say you can do as many rows of double crochet as you want, but make sure you end with a right side row, and as you can see I've actually cut my yarn here. Now we're still going to be using this colour, but with overlay mosaic crochet, which is what I'm now going to show you, all of your rows are always done on the right side. So at the end of every row you're going to be cutting the yarn and starting again at the beginning. So that's what I've done here. So I've now got this other little colour I'm going to bring in here, and all we do to get started on overlay mosaic, instead of working our pattern or like trebles in front of chain spaces, we don't worry about chains with overlay mosaic. It's all just going to be double crochets and trebles, but the secret of it is where you work them. You're not going to be working through both loops as you normally would. We're just going to be using one loop. We're going to be using the back loops when we do our double crochets, and then that'll just leave us a little row front loops there which we can then use to put our trebles into. So it might sound complicated, but really isn't. So I'm now just going to take you through that and explain it. So I've got my scissors handy because I'm going to need that with overlay, because as I said, we're going to be cutting it at the end of every row. So what we're going to do to join new colours here, we're going to start with a you can do a slip stitch, one chain, and then do your double crochet, but sometimes people can get a little bit confused about where to start. I find if you can get the hang of a standing double crochet, it's much easier to make sure you always start in the first stitch rather than the sort of first stitch minus one, okay, which will then make your work lean. Okay, so when I do a slip knot, it's probably not a real slip knot, but I find this is the easiest way to do it. You can see I'm just going to twist that yarn around, so I've got my tail there, and there's the bit I'm going to be working with, and then just basically pull a chain through, pull that tight, and that for me works as a slip knot. Okay, so we've now got that end secure, so you're going to just insert. At the end, the edge stitches will always be worked as just an ordinary double crochet through both loops. That just keeps the edges nice and neat, but all of the others are going to be, so I've done my first edge stitch through both loops. Now we've got what I call a back loop double crochet, so a double crochet in the back loops only, which means rather than inserting your hook like so, we're just going to insert it in the middle there, so it just picks up that back loop. Do our double crochet like that. So it's a normal double crochet, you're just working it into one of the loops rather than both of them. Okay, so that's that. So insert into the back loop, double crochet. So we're going to start with a whole row just like that. Okay, so you should be able to see we've now got this little ridge here. I'll bring it a little bit closer so you can see it, where we've got the front loops visible, because we're going to be needing them on the next row. But for this row, just carry on along with your row of back loop double crochets right up until you get to the end, but make sure that very last stitch, which isn't this little chain bit on the end where we fastened off, it's in there. Make sure that is a double crochet, a standard one through both loops. Okay, so I'm now almost to the end, and say just to show you that very last stitch, make sure you work that through both loops. Just sort of firms up the edge. Right, once we've done that, we can fasten off. So to do that, I'll just pull that through there, leave it a reasonable length, because you're gonna need, well, we're not actually, okay, there's different ways of dealing with the ends. You can do fringes, pull that out there, we'll leave that, or you can weave them in. What I do on the Snuggle Up blanket, and I will do generally if I'm doing an overlay crochet blanket anyway, do a lovely envelope border. So we will be hiding these ends, but you say, just to make sure you've got enough to work with, whether you're going to be making a fringe or weaving them in, do leave them long enough. Don't cut them too short, because then you won't be able to do much with them. Okay, so that's row 1 done. So we now go back to our colour that we were using down here, and we're going to start again at the beginning with a standing double crochet. So again, that's what my version of a slip knot. And then in this very first stitch here, I'm going to do our edge stitch through both loops. So now what we're going to do, this is just like a version of, it's a very, very common pattern, a lovely simple introduction to overlay mosaic, which is basically called Apache tears. I think it was originally designed years and years ago, but yeah, it's a very common one, and it's really, really simple to do. So I'm just going to take you through that. There's lots of different ways you can do it with the number of stitches you leave between your trebles, but we're just going to keep it nice and narrow, and I'll explain it now. So I say we've got our edge stitch. We're now going to start with 2 back loop double crochets, so we're still doing all the double crochets now, apart from the edge stitch is going to be back loops. And now what we're going to do to create our pattern, we need to fill in, we're going to cover over this stitch here by working a treble into this front loop. So yarn over, and then you just pick up, insert your hook in that loop. Now try not to pull this too tightly, and there's your treble. So that's how we make the pattern when we're doing overlay mosaic. And I call it overlay because the treble is laying over the background stitches. This one I call inset, because we actually inset our treble into the space that was left. Okay, hopefully that makes some sense. So now I'll repeat, it's lovely and straightforward. It's just going to be, oh, what you need to do, make sure you miss this stitch behind the treble. So missing that one, you can see that, we're now going to work our next back loop double crochet into there. So then we do 2 more. So we've got 3 back loop double crochets, and then just make sure you're working into the correct loop. Just hold your work nice and straight. You can see normally you would be working into this stitch, you want to go directly down there. Okay, you can also check that where we've had 3 stitches there, you've got 3 front loops visible there. Okay, so treble into there. Again, make sure you miss this one behind. Then we got 1, 2, 3, 1 front loop treble, and that's it. Just going to carry on along the row like so. Okay, and end with a front loop treble. Okay, so that is our first pattern row, which is row 2 of little overlay pattern. Okay, so we've now got to the end, so we need to fasten that off again. So pull that up and chop it off. Okay, so now the pattern goes, we'll pick up our, hold on, where is it? Pick up our contrast colour again. As always, start with a slip knot, and then start back at the beginning of the row with a standard double crochet through both loops. Now this time, instead of doing 2 back loop double crochets, we're just going to do 1. Okay, and then we're going to do our treble into here. So that'll be little staggered stitches. Okay, so we've still got, as we did on the previous row, we're now going to have 3 back loop double crochets, 2, 3, and 1 front loop treble. So nice and easy. 2, 3, 1 front loop treble. So that is how the pattern works. So you can carry on, you can do Apache tears is fantastic because you can do it all in one colour and that gives you a lovely texture, or you can do what we're doing here, which is just 2 colours, or you can do every single row in a different colour. It's entirely up to you, but it's a lovely way of getting some colour easily into a blanket or scarf or whatever you're making. Okay, so 1, 2, oops, caught up, 3 back loop double crochets, 1 front loop treble. And now this time we end with 1 back loop double crochet, and then our edge stitch, which is a standard double crochet through both loops, and fasten off. Okay, just pull that securely. So that is how you do. So I've now changed back to the previous colour again. Standing, or we've got our slip knot. So we then start with our standing double crochet through both loops. And now immediately we're going to do a treble in there. Okay, then exactly the same stitch pattern as we've been doing on the other rows, which is going to be 1, 2, 3 back loop double crochets and a front loop treble. So you can carry on, do that as many times as you want. Just following that same principle. Your first treble and your little repeat is going to nudge up to the treble from the previous row. And then it's just 3 back loop double crochets. So you can see it depends how you look at it, whether you see sort of little step pattern coming out there, or if the light's in the right direction, sometimes what you'll see is I don't know if that will work if I turn it around. Let's see if that makes any difference, whether you can see the texture more. Maybe see the texture a little bit better there, so you'll get like a diagonal line of texture. So if you did it all in one colour, you just have this nice textured diagonal lines. Okay, so this is the end of row 7 for this part of Snuggle Up, and that's how many rows I decided to do of the Apache tears. I didn't want to do any more. Say you could do a whole blanket in it, but if you're following that pattern, then this is where it'll end. And now what we do, I haven't actually cut off the yarn at the end here because I'm just going to do a few more rows of plain double crochet. So now we're going to do turning chain like we were doing down here, and then just turn around, and this time I'm working through both loops. So we're back to doing just standard double crochets, which will like go between, and I'll just show you, the idea is just to basically show you how you can use just small little sections of really simple mosaic crochet patterns just to sort of blend color changes if you're doing a really simple piece. So I say Snuggle Up includes lots of other stitch patterns and also an extra couple of mosaic charts and patterns. So yeah, the pattern will have the charts, the full written instructions, lots of other stitches. But if you don't want to do that, you can actually create something really beautiful just with these simple stitches. So yeah, just carry on, do a few more rows. I'll just turn it over. I've nearly finished this, so I'll show you. 1, 2, don't forget this last stitch. There we go. So I'll just show you the back here. So this is the wrong side, and you can just see both types of mosaic crochet create sort of stripes on the back. With inset mosaic, because we're doing 2 rows in each colour, the stripes are going to be a bit wider. And also, if I take my hook out of there, you should be able to see you've actually got your chains loose on the back. So these are only really short chains, so that's, but if you've got an inset mosaic pattern with lots of trebles next to each other, you will find that you'll have quite a lot of chains on the back, so that can be quite a long chain. But so just to let you know, so that is the inset mosaic bit. And then when we go up to the overlay mosaic, then obviously because we're only doing 1 row in each colour, then the stripes are much narrower. Okay, so I'll just flip it over, and hopefully you can see, if you know wanting to carry on with this lighter blue, how that is just a way of sort of blending from this colour to that colour nice and gradually.